Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, March 14, 2023 Tarrant County Commissioners Court meeting. Would everyone please rise for our invocation? Would you bow with me? Father, thank you for this county that we call home. Thank you for this state and this country we call home. Thank you for the commissioners up here on this dais. I pray that you'll guide them in their decision-making today and in all the days to follow. I thank you for their service. I also pray for every member of our staff, and I just pray that you'll give us wisdom and understanding on how to run an efficient, a good government. We thank you for the people that have worked here for so many years and for the ones that have just joined us, and we just pray that we continue to make this a great place to work. We thank you for Jesus, our Savior. It's in his name we pray. Amen. Amen. And doing our pledges today, we have some young guests, and that would be Katie, Emily, Juliana, and Amanda O'Hare. So come on up, girls.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, ladies.
And you know what? I missed the old call to order. So I guess we need to do that, don't we?
Tim O'Hare, County Judge.
Present.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner of Precinct 1.
Present.
Alyssa Simmons, Commissioner of Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Ficas, Commissioner of Precinct 3.
Here.
Manny Ramirez, Commissioner of Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitution Forum.
All right, thank you. Do we have any agenda announcements, GK?
Yes, Your Honor. We're going to take one item that is on consent and remove it from consent. That is Budget and Risk Management Department. It's item 8C1. This is the appropriation adjustments, and I'll be addressing that issue when we get to that particular point. Also, members of the court, we do not have a closed session for today.
All right. 8C1, removed from consent. Do we have any announcements from the court members?
I have one. This last week, Will Rogers hosted the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show and Youth Fair. You know, that's an annual event where the children come out from Tarrant County and all the FFA and 4-H programs and exhibit the animals that they work so hard throughout the year to raise. Proud to announce that a rough estimate of what they raised total for the Tarrant County youth was $491,000 just last week. So it's a great program if you've never been involved with the stock show sale or the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show. and you want to get involved, please reach out to our staff at Precinct 4. We're very blessed to have Will Rogers and Dickies in our precinct, and we're going to support them however we can. So that was a good event this week.
All right, thank you, sir.
It was always a testament of the support of this court to our colleague J.D. Johnson that we always contributed to the fund. And I hope that will continue with this new court.
Well, and on Saturday, I was out there with JD, and we were spending y'all's money.
So, by the way, on that particular issue, I did get a call from Commissioner Johnson the other day, and he did remind me that I have yet to send my money in. So he's bird dogging this thing. So
The only other announcement to make is we are going to look at implementing a homestead exemption. There is no percentage that anyone has agreed to do. There is no guarantee that there will be one in place, but we are going to look at it. And in lieu of putting it on the agenda here in the next 2 meetings, the staff is forming a group to look at that and bring data to the court on exactly what the impact would be to the budget based on percentages. So we anticipate taking that measure up sometime in the next 2 months. We would want to do it obviously well in advance of the budget process, which is already underway. Any other announcements? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to approval of the minutes.
Move approval. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. Okay, the minutes are, Gary, you going to vote on this one? You abstaining from minutes votes? There we go. All right, the minutes pass unanimously. Next up is the consent agenda with the exception of budget item 8C1.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? Do you have something you'd like to address?
On the budget, you're putting a committee together. Are there any big department heads involved in that, or is it just going to strictly be budget?
I would say it is in the very preliminary stages.
Okay.
But if you would be interested in doing something with it, I'm sure we can visit afterwards.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think that at least the big 5 department heads, if it's, looking at cuts and things, I mean, I think we would love to have an opportunity to just kind of hear where the conversation's going so we can, have a little bit of inside before it's brought out and presented, if that's something y'all would consider. I'd
I think
appreciate it.
my estimation for what the committee was looking at right now is really getting us a dollar figure on what different levels are. So not, I guess, tailoring or allocating any cuts to specific areas, but
Okay.
just finding the financial impact first. And then I think you're absolutely correct.
I appreciate it.
Every
Just something to
department needs be
consider.
involved.
I'd ask the court.
And that committee, if we run out of our office, we're going to put a working group together to do that. So everyone is invited, but it's not to determine cuts at all.
Yep.
It's simply fiscal impact issues.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, the consent agenda passes unanimously. So next up would be the item that was removed, which item 8C1, which is approval of fiscal year 2023 appropriation adjustments.
Right. I know what the question's going to be, and I'll probably be the one who'll at least start the conversation on answering that question. But if we could first, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the FY23 appropriation adjustments. We can get a motion in a second, then we'll discuss that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, any discussion?
So
Questions?
I do have a comment on one of those particular items. If you will go to the second page of that, and it's the first one, which is IT Project Management Office. It's 181022, and it's a reallocation within the IT budget of $50,000 we'd like to move $50,000 from the line item dealing with TexShare Jail Management System to TexShare Courts. The reason for this is that as we were implementing TexShare Courts, we thought that we were going to have court implemented sometime at the end of '22, and we're very, very close. We haven't gotten there yet. There was one person that was employed as a consultant for TexShare, not under the county's umbrella, but under the TexShare LGC umbrella, and her contract was ended at the end of February, and we think that we need this position to finish out. Rather than doing some type of an extension with TexShare itself, we want to bring that person in under our supervision. That person will be a temporary employee, and she will work up to 28 to 30 hours a week. I intend to keep her in my TO so that we can have general supervision, but she'll be doing the activities for the stakeholders, in all the various stakeholders on TexShare Court. And I intend to keep her for somewhere between 8 to 10 weeks, and then that position will go away.
So this person is not on board yet, correct?
No, we're onboarding her now, but she has not started working yet.
And the part-time development consultant is needed more on the court software, obviously, than the jail. Because you're sliding $50K from the jail.
We believe that we'll have excess revenue for the jail piece because it's up and going and functioning very well. And so what this person is going to be involved in, she'll be involved in the business process management part, the configuration part, court operations and financials. She'll be doing a lot of report developing, and which is something that is normally done at the end of software development and go live to make sure we have the correct reports for all the various stakeholders. And so we don't, this is money that is already budgeted in the ITD department, and so we're simply moving it from one category to the other in order to finish up TexShare Court.
And so how much more will you need to finish up TexShare Court?
Well, we have done a contract now with TexShare, and we believe that we have funding that's going to be adequate. Both the county and district clerk have funded out of their special projects funds the remainder of this. We have funding that will take us through the end of May.
So is the 50,000, say the length of her contract, or his or her contract again? This is 50,000 for 8 weeks, did you say?
8 to 10 weeks. 8 weeks will get us into the middle of May. 10 weeks will get us to the end of May.
And it's supposed to launch when?
We anticipate, or hopefully it's going to launch May 1st. But we have 30 days of stabilization, and which we utilize in all of our software implementations, regardless if it's software we develop or if it's software we buy from the shelf. And so that will carry us through that stabilization period.
Okay, just a reminder to folks that TexShare Court is not launched, and you started this project in, I left my spreadsheet on my desk, 2011, I think, for TexShare Court.
I believe you're correct, yes.
Okay, and it has not launched, and we've spent about $28 million on a platform that does not work. So I just want to remind the citizens.
That platform has not been implemented yet. It is all part of the TexShare criminal justice package that is going to run all of our criminal justice programs. Everything from someone entering the justice system at the point they enter our jail system through the time that they complete any type of action in court and they're sentenced and either sent to TDC or probation.
Okay, this is bothersome. It's very concerning. So every time TexShare Court is on this agenda for more money, I'm going to ask about it. I'm going to ask when it will launch.
Absolutely.
We're just bleeding money into this platform, and my staff has been doing the research, and other counties are using other platforms that work. So, thank you.
We also said that we were going to do a major briefing for court in April on TechShare, and we intend to lay this entire issue out for you all to look at.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or discussion? All right, seeing none, we do have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote. All right, this passes unanimously. Next up, Human Resources, receive and file the personnel agenda.
Personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? You could probably save a trip up here.
Yeah, I want to get my steps in, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, the personnel agenda is received and filed. Next up, RFP 2023-025, Annual Contract for Compensation Study Services, Human Resources, Korn Ferry. Melissa, I think we've all talked about this. We all know what this is. I have a motion I'd like to make, but if y'all have questions, I want you to ask them before I make it. Anything? You wait and see the motion? Yeah, all right. So
We'll ask questions during
all right,
discussion.
so my motion is to approve the compensation study for 2023 with the caveat that we do not repeat the study for the 2024 budget cycle, essentially moving this from annual to once every 2 years. That's my motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I can support that.
All right. All right, seeing none, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yep, that would be
Okay,
fine.
all right, we have a motion and a second. With no further discussion, please cast your vote. All right, it passes unanimously. Next
Melissa,
up,
I want to thank you and Ange for working really hard and making sure that the communication was correct on this particular item.
Okay.
I think you guys went above and beyond to make sure that we knew the justification, why you needed it. I think we'll be better off for going every 2 years instead of every year also, so.
good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, item 2, liquid chromatograph and mass spectrometer.
For the medical examiner office, awarding to Allegiant Technologies.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Number 3.
And the third item is also an award recommendation regarding bid number 2023-070. This is our annual contract for fuel, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors listed per unit price.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second to approve. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, it passes unanimously.
And the fourth item is also an award recommendation regarding RFP number 2023-075. This is for professional consulting services for closing the gap with social determinants of health accelerator plans for chronic disease prevention for public health, awarding to IBM Corporation per contract terms.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All right, cast your vote. All right, passage unanimously. Number 5.
And the fifth item is an approval of an invoice payment for facilities management to Artex Overhead Door Company. The department called the previous vendor who was handling the contract prior to October for repair of the gate at elections. And I think there's
Move approval. We do owe the money, right?
yes, it's just $250.
Okay,
Second.
second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion there
We have an audience participation form on
on that item? Okay.
that.
all right,
Mr. Daniel Bennett.
Judge O'Hara, Commissioners, I want to talk about this first position, second position vending. You know, you guys have a preferred vendor, then you have a secondary as a backup. I like to go back to the last meeting. There was an item on your agenda in this very same framework. It was number 12 in purchasing. It was Dallas Pro Painting as a secondary position to Gomez Flooring Covering. Now, this one's a mistake, but when I looked through the vendor's price list, I noticed that the one and second position had pricing that was 30% to 10 times that of Gomez Flooring. So Dallas Pro Painting, should this mistake be made in this particular matter, you will be paying 10 times the glue cost that Gomez would be charging. So I encourage your purchasing department to take Dallas Pro Painting price list, compare it to Gomez price list, and let's not make that error. Secondly, on the same line of thought, there was also on number 11 last week with Fikes in Arlington versus Guardian Dallas County. Their pricing from first vendor to second vendor are almost identical, except there was one line item where Fikes was 4.5 times as much as Guardian. Now, Fikes is a Arlington company. Guardian is a Dallas company. Do we not want to reward Tarrant County companies with contracts if they are commensurate in pricing and service? I know this court wants to do that. So I encourage your purchasing department to look at those particular bids in the first and second position and see that the line item 2 under commercial kitchen walk-in overhead 6 feet long vent hoods, call up Fikes and see if it was a clerical error. Clerical errors are allowed to be discharged and corrected upon bidding. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are on item 5, approval of invoice payment to Overhead Door Company. We had a motion and a second. Anyone have any questions or further discussion?
What was the difference in payment? Or
For
in charges?
between the two vendors?
Uh-huh. Not that big a deal.
Judge and commissioners, this is actually a lower price because it was the previous year's bid. The new one would have been $100 extra.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
Just that the point at issue is that we do owe the money, and we need to
gotta
pay
pay
the vendors who have provided us with services.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Please cast your vote. All right, it passes unanimously. Next up, item 6, approval of invoice payment from award trophies.
Yes, this is approval of an invoice payment. Someone in the sheriff's office went out and purchased awards from Advent Design without prior approval. So we're requesting payment of invoice because they've already accepted and given out the awards.
Okay, I'll second that. Yes, something?
I was going to second the motion, but I was also going to comment that it seems that this is happening much more frequently, and we need to take corrective action to make sure that departments know what the procedure
Procedures are.
is.
Yes.
And that we stick to bidding policy.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Next up, interlocal agreement, Precinct 3. Thank you, Melissa.
I move approval of the interlocal agreement between Precinct 3 and City of Richland Hills.
All right, I'll second that. We have a second from Commissioner Brooks. So we have a motion and a second to approve the interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the City of Richland Hills. That would be 1A and B.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, you may cast your vote. All right, it passes unanimously. Next up, Commissioner Ramirez.
I move to approve an interlocal agreement between Precinct 4, Tarrant County, and the Azle Independent School District. Items A and B.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement between Azle ISD and Tarrant County. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, that also passes unanimously. Next up, we have board and commission appointments.
I have two.
All right. You first.
First is a new member to the Tarrant County Historical Commission for a 2-year term ending January 2025. And this is for Randall C. Davis. The second is a reappointment, Jim Hodgkins, to the Tarrant County Historical Commission for a term ending January 2025. And again, that's for Jim Hoskins. He's been a long-time member.
All right, we have a motion and a second for those appointments to the Historical Commission. Any discussion? All right, cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Anybody else have one? All right, I have one. I would like to appoint Taylor Hardiman to the CPS board. She is a registered nurse, and that will fill a position that is currently unfilled.
Second.
All right, we have I guess I make a motion for that. Yes, you second it. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. And we don't have any certificates of self-insurance. Next up is approval of claims and addendum.
Move approval of the claims including the addendum.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the claims and the addendum. Any discussion there? All right, seeing none, cast your vote. All right, it passes unanimously. Next up, briefing on legislative issues.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, in your packet, you have the memorandum from Mr. Schaffner as it relates to those activities that are happening currently at the legislature. I'd like to bring one item up and ask for direction, and I will make a recommendation on that. And that deals with Senate Bill 1034. And that is on the last paragraph of that particular communication. Also, you should have received a memorandum from Mr. Schaffner. I guess it happened yesterday. And it really details some work that Craig Price, our chief of the Civil Division, has done as it relates to public nuisance issues. And what this Senate bill does, it attempts to not allow public entities to file public nuisance claims against companies and potential individuals. Mr. Price did an excellent job on the communications that he has sent to you. I would like to point out that Tarrant County has been involved in various nuisance claims that have impacted our citizens, and our attempt was to receive some type of compensation that would address some of the costs that we have incurred dealing with those particular nuisance claims. I'll list two of them right now. You know that we are currently going through the opioid settlement process, and that was a nuisance claim that we filed, and because of the major damage that opioids have done to our community, and also the amounts of money that we have spent as a government in an attempt to address opioid. We also had other claims, those being the Volkswagen and Fiat claims, which were clear intentional violations by those companies as it relates to air quality. And we did receive some compensation for that. As you know, we are in a non-compliant county, and we attempt not only through our transportation bond program, but also through the vehicles that are used in our precincts to have vehicles that provide or burn cleaner, if you will. And so if this legislation would pass, then what would happen, we would no longer be able to participate in those type of claims. You might also remember the significant train accident that happened in Ohio. And if we had a train accident like that here, we would probably not be able to, and we would expend monies. We always have to claim and show how we've expended monies. We would probably not be able to get any type of redress on something like that. So what I would like to suggest to the court is that while we may not oppose this particular bill, that we direct our office through Russell to attempt to have counties, especially Tarrant County, would be removed from this particular statute or proposed statute. That way it would still give us the flexibility that we would need if in fact our citizens in our county were injured, and so that we would expend resources from the county so that we would be able to recapture those expenditures.
Just to make sure I'm clear, Senate Bill 1034, you are recommending that we ask the legislature to just exclude Tarrant County?
Yes, and I know that the DA's office even suggested all governmental entities. That may be too broad for you all to accept, but I would hope that we could do something that would give Russell some flexibility to go and see if we can be removed from this particular statute.
Does the current proposed statute exclude Texas from doing this?
It excludes the state from doing this also.
Okay.
This is what we used to call a bad old bill. And if it's bad for Tarrant County, it's bad for the rest of the state. I will follow your lead on what the strategy is, whether to just go to protect ourselves or to try to kill a bad piece of legislation that will impact the rest of the state. It's a bad bill. I'm against it for us, and I'm against it for the rest of the state.
So rather than ask you for a specific vote, because this is a briefing item, if you can simply give me direction. If my intent is to ask Russell to work to see if we can pull counties out, especially Tarrant County, and if there's a possibility of going broader, then we might do that, but specifically aim at trying to get Tarrant County removed from this piece of legislation.
So take the opioid litigation, for example. Texas took the lead on that.
Texas, the state and the county, there were two different lawsuits on that.
I mean, the sums of money that are involved in litigating a case like that, or that could be astronomical. So the idea that Texas couldn't do this anymore, I'm with you, Commissioner Brooks. I think it's a bad bill. So I'm for where you can redress issues in the courts, you get to do it, and
Absolutely.
let juries decide what you can and cannot do accordance with state law. So I support whatever measures we take to say, let's stop the bill.
I think this has a significant impact on our ability to represent our taxpayers when something like the Ohio incident would occur here.
Yes.
So I agree. I think that it's not good for Tarrant County taxpayers.
The protection of our citizens should be a local matter that we decide up here on this dais. We don't need some overriding law that tells us what we can and cannot do to protect the public interest of our citizens.
Okay. So also I wanted to bring it to your attention. I imagine that most of you know that Representative Guerin has filed a bill dealing with the Tarrant Appraisal District, and just to make sure that it's up on your radar. If that bill would remove the jurisdiction of how we would select the board, and actually it would the management of TAD would come under the control of the Texas Comptroller. And so I just want to make sure that you all are aware that it's out there.
Well, in speaking with Representative Guerin, it's abundantly clear that there are serious issues that merit concern over at TAD. And so in filing that, I know that Representative Guerin had a mind to raise those issues and make sure that they were top of mind for everybody when they made their decisions. So I know we have an alternate course playing out with the recall that we initiated last week. But with that bill, I know that Representative Guerin was highlighting the significant problems that are still remaining at TAD and that need to be remedied.
I appreciate Representative Guerin. He is always on the forefront of trying to help out county government and his county in particular. We do have significant issues with TAD, but I think there are local issues that we need to correct locally. I appreciate him shining the light on these issues, but I don't know that I trust the state comptroller's office to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves.
Thank you. All right, you got what you need there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next up is announcements, comments. I did receive a letter this morning from the chief appraiser of TAD, a somewhat lengthy letter, but we are passing it around for everyone to see, or Mark may have already sent it to all the commissioners or will shortly. One of the key parts in the letter was he didn't anticipate that we would need to take legal action. So there is a TAD board meeting, I believe, scheduled for Friday where they're going to take up the issues that we have raised in our letter, the recall, and how to go about creating the filling the position, amongst other things. So any other announcements from the court? Okay, seeing none, we do have 3 people signed up to speak during public comments. First up is Terry Roach.
Thank you, Your Honor and Commissioners. Wrong decisions by a judge are not misconduct, even if they fly in the face of the evidence or appear based on perjured testimony, and even if the judge misapplies the law. That is a direct quote from the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, and that, Commissioners, is why we need judicial reform in Texas. D.A. Sorrells was a judge. D.A. Sorrells, who won't meet with me, answer my letters, return phone calls, or answer any questions from mine, who won't release the body camera that I've requested. And why not? Because the video evidence flies in the face of the story his office is telling. When the DA's office isn't the standard bearer for justice, corruption ensues. I've seen the injustice, and I've spoken about my experience before. But there are many who've suffered far worse than I have. And for the rest of my time, I'll read a letter from one such individual. I don't know him personally, Mr. Brendan Jones, and honestly, I hesitated to read this letter. I can't vouch for everything he says, but I believe him. And in the end, Mr. Jones and I ask you the same. Listen to citizens, ask questions, and think about what you don't see or don't hear in terms of the answers that our DA should provide. From Mr. Brendan Jones, this is my story. In 2021, then Judge Sorrells acted to silence me, issuing a bench warrant for my arrest for non-appearance while I stood in front of him at trial and in front of multiple witnesses. In January of 2021, my wife's former partner and father of my stepdaughter sued my wife in district court. His attorney, Timothy Vinson, is the largest donor for Judge Jesus Navarez. Together, Mr. Vinson, Judge Navarez, and the Sheriff's Department intimidated, harassed, and coerced my family using legal proceedings to separate me from my wife and my wife from her daughter. Mr. Vinson made baseless claims that my wife and I committed child abuse. Eventually, Judge Crawford Catterton held me in criminal contempt. I was to be held for 180 days, or until I revealed the whereabouts of my wife and stepdaughter. That's extortion taking place under the guise of justice. After 15 days, I was heard by Judge Navarez, who released me from contempt. But at the same hearing, I was retroactively charged with resisting arrest for the arrest that took place in his court just 15 days prior. Shortly thereafter, I was heard by Judge Sorrells of the 10th Criminal Court. Judge Sorrells determined that the state had no ground to charge me as the initial arrest was not lawful. But Judge Sorrells then used his judicial power to silence me, again issuing a bench warrant for my arrest for non-appearance while I stood in front of him and multiple witnesses. I'm asking the Commission to do a full investigation regarding these matters in the family and criminal courts. I also ask that any current resident of Tarrant County that's been similarly impacted by the judicial system, please make your story known. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time. And again, from Mr. Brendan Jones, it concludes with, may God's love shine through all of us.
Thank you. All right, next we have Robert Bucher.
Good morning, Commissioners Court.
Good
I
morning.
kind of want to speak on judges, and I'm going to speak on the jail as well, something I personally know. I've done 10 years of corrections from the TDCJ level all the way down to the municipality level. Well, personally, I have somebody that has been incarcerated before, under false pretenses. Pretty much when you get falsely accused, you have to go through the system, and it's not fun. Well, when this individual was held in Tarrant County, this person happens to be a heart patient, which not getting their medication properly, and we just had a death not even 2 weeks ago reported because of not proper medication being given what you want to give, given what you think you give. And I even heard during a visitation with this individual that we can give when we want to, when we have to. I said that's not acceptable for a heart patient that has terminally ill, and this person I know very well, and it was very disheartening. That's one of the many issues that we're having inside the Tarrant County Jail. We talk about training and all that, but we don't look at the JPS side. They do what they want to do. Give the medicine the way they want to. Seems to be a reoccurring thing in Tarrant County to do what you want to do, and that even goes to the judges wanting to legislate from the bench, not following the color of law or rule of law. If somebody wants to say, hey, we're going to send you to, let's say, PSY, which has a contract with the county, you go sit in a room full of sex offenders and you're not a sex offender, but yet you had to take a test that has nothing to do with your charge, is absolutely ridiculous. And I've seen this happen, and it's time that I speak out. I've done 10 years, and I've seen a lot in my 10 years. A lot. I've seen a lot of misjustice, injustice. I even seen somebody get brought in on the wrong charge, and I heard the sergeant over the jail say, find the charge that works instead of letting this person go and live to fight another day. I was so appalled at that. But we want to train, but we need to start with the top leadership. Instead of staying in Washington, D.C., staying inside all the pictures and hanging out with everybody else, why don't you go fix your jail? Fix it. There's a lot of problems going on inside the jail. We need more than just training. We need the sheriff to either put up or get out, period. We have a lot of problems trying to get any open records requests. That goes from our own GOP, and I will call them out because it's ridiculous that we should have this. If somebody's doing something wrong, we need our commissioners to say, it's time to change our county and get it right, because our Tarrant County GOP has just the word Tarrant in there. I think we should all start holding them accountable, establishment or not. It don't matter what party you're in. If there's issues, we need to handle it as a whole. But it's time to start looking at the jail and saying, okay, what's the problem? Is it the leadership? If it is, then we need to fix that, or we need to shape up and ship out and do something different. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Daniel Bennett.
Commissioner Brooks, thank you. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it that good about the comptroller's office and it being a local issue. Thank you. To you, Ms. Simmons, Commissioner Simmons, I hope GK will supply you with a Venn diagram and a flow chart of court share before the April meeting of all parties involved, and annotate within the Venn diagram and the flow chart where the monies are allocated through the years from 2011 to current. Shouldn't be that difficult. As far as the railroad's concerned, let's hope they have catastrophic insurance that's payable to this court for dispersion to the people who are harmed should we have a train accident. We don't need the state telling us what we need to make people that conduct business within Tarrant County to keep our citizenry safe to do. We can do that on our own. Let's talk about TAD. I have a solution for this court on TAD, and please hear me. Minute 57, I don't know if I can get through this. Back on March 3rd, when they had that meeting, it was a called meeting. It was not a regular meeting. The agenda did not reflect it. Under Open Meetings Act, you're supposed to reflect special, emergency, and called meetings. Still this day, we don't know who called the meeting. I want you to look at the executive session language. No one on this board is an attorney except for you, Judge. Posting up for the meeting was misleading to the public. Under Texas Open Meetings Act Government Code 551, the language defining the purpose for the executive session is not vague, but it is misleading and not clear. There's two things in the act. The language reflected within the posted agenda cited code under 551.071, it states consultation with TAD's attorney regarding matters. That was posted by TAD. TAD's attorney, consultation with TAD's attorney regarding matters. TAD's attorney was not an executive session. The board's attorney was. And the public was misled in that language thinking TAD's attorney is going into executive session. I bring this to your attention following the requirement to consult with the counsel of the governing body concerning any doubt to the specificity of notice. That's language right out of the handbook from the Attorney General's office. The statute's clear, stating that the governing body should consult with its attorney. Mr. Tepper, the general counsel to the board of directors of the Tarrant Appraisal District, I read this letter to him. I said, you are the duly recognized general counsel to the TAD board. You do not work for TAD. You are not paid by TAD. You were not hired by TAD. You were hired by that board. And the language issued at that agenda should be nullified, and that meeting should not exist. If you would fire a mandus with the court under 552.312, you can kill that meeting, have a judge rule in your favor, your recall stands, Wildman's out, and we can knock this nonsense off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. All right, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, before we entertain a motion to adjourn, I would like to recognize 3 additional special guests with us. Sophia, Mia, and Penelope Ramirez. Could you please stand? Spring break has its benefits. So, welcome, girls. All right, that's all we have for today's meeting. There is no executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Please cast your vote. All right, we are adjourned.